Hello, and welcome again to another session of the Learning Cafe at Skill Tiger. Our guest today has over 2 decades of experience in IT products, eco buildings, and data center business. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Amod Ranade. Amod's area of forte is sales, product management, business development, and strategy. While he has been a part of various strategy and transformation projects, one of the things he champions is innovation. He's a speaker at various data center conferences and is often invited for data center focused conference sessions by iShare. He has been an active participant in the IGBCSC Green Data Center rating system, where his contributions to designing and developing the system have been significant. An avid sports enthusiast, he likes to play cricket and table tennis. A very unique and interesting facet about Amod is that he is a proponent of Advaita Vedic philosophy and conducts lectures on the Bhagavad Gita. We are all well aware how the technology landscape has changed over the last decade or so, more so with the advent of data centers and its growth exponentially. With our interaction with Amod, we will try and explore what this business is all about and also try and understand how we can structure our careers, especially in sales, in such a fast changing and dynamic industry. Good morning, Amod, and welcome to our Learning Cafe at Skill Tiger. We are glad to have you on board this session, and we hope our learners will gain by the expertise and the experience you have accumulated over the last few decades.
Thanks, Rahul, and thank you for having me.
Amod, as we understand, data center businesses are quite complex with high stakes for both you as a solution provider as well as the customer who depends on you to deliver these solutions. Uh, we've also seen that it is one of the faster growing businesses over the last decade, and our learners would be keen to understand what this data center business is all about.
Yes, Rahul. So the data center business is a very complex business if you look at it. And one of the complexity arises from what perspective you are viewing the data center market. I come from the data center infrastructure perspective, which means I don't offer software solutions or application platforms to customers. I don't offer networking hardware or compute hardware or storage to customers. So what I was involved with is the business where we create the basic infrastructure on which the IT can get added, which means in a building, making sure that the power is there up to the server, making sure the servers are getting cooled properly, making sure that the entire safety, security, uh, fire detection, access control, surveillance, all these systems which make up for the building infrastructure of the data center, that was the space that I was active in. The other thing about data center is also how you define the data center. So for us on the infrastructure side, it was pretty easy. As soon as there is a room which is dedicated for IT equipment housing, we used to call it a data center. But if you ask some from the IT perspective, actually where the core data of an enterprise is hosted, that is the data center if you look at it from an IT definition. So practically wherever the ERP of an organization is hosted, that should be called a data center. As a result, there are many IT setups which look exactly like a data center, but many times could be called as laboratories or IT rooms and things like that. So there are a lot of words which are used to describe.
Thank you, Amod, for giving us the different and diverse perspectives of data center. The definition as data center as an IT infrastructure and the definition of data center from a IT application perspective. Yeah. What we would be keen to know more is the IT infrastructure part that you manage. If you could throw some light on nuances of the IT infrastructure side of data center,
especially when you cater to large enterprise clients? How is it structured?
So that's a great question because we actually oversimplified when we defined data center in the earlier question. We said that okay, if there is a room full of IT equipment, let us call it a data center. But when we look at segmenting the data center, there are various unique segments that emerge, and each usually has a very unique requirement from the customer perspective. And so when we are providing solutions, we were very aware and conscious about what segment we are addressing. As a result, the kind of solutions that we propose used to change. Largely, if we split it four ways, there is large and extra large data center, which is typically more than 5 megawatt of IT equipment at a single place. Then there is small and medium data centers, which is typically ranging from 500 kilowatts to 3 to 5 megawatts. And then there is micro data center, which is less than 500 kVA of IT equipment. So very simply, we can divide it like this. Now, why does the requirement change? The requirements start changing because for very small setups, usually the data center for a micro data center or a small and medium data center, typically the data center becomes a part of a building. So, and there may be an office building, and let's say half a floor of it or a small space on the floor is a data center. Whereas when we talk about large or extra large data centers, which are typically 5 megawatt and above, the entire building is only for the data center. There are very unique things about the structure of the building itself which needs to be designed for. To take just an example, batteries are an essential requirement because UPSs come in, and these UPSs are expected to keep the IT running in case of any mains failures. And so there is a considerable amount of battery that is required. Now, when it is a micro or small and medium data center, the battery is less because the capacity of the UPS is less. And so on a standard commercial application floor, which is designed, it is good enough to carry the weight of those batteries. Sometimes small tweaks need to be done in distributing the weight of the battery by using specific type of stands or supports, but that's about it. You don't need to change anything structurally. But when we are talking about 5 megawatt worth of UPS and batteries to support that, the weight we are talking about is humongous. And many a times the floor of the battery room has to be specifically designed, sometimes double the strength or more than that required for a typical commercial building. The second complexity, just to share with you, is the diverse technology and engineering fields which are involved here. The moment we talk about air conditioning, we are talking about components like chillers, air handling units. So deep mechanical engineering knowledge is required to design these, to operate these, and to maintain these. When you talk about power, it is right from creating a substation, which is what we call medium voltage. So from an 11 kV or a 33 kV line, getting it down to 440 volt, 50 hertz. So transformer, busways, then taking it to electrical panels, designing the electrical panels. Then sometimes the distribution is through cables, sometimes it is through busway again. So the UPSs for power conditioning before giving it to the IT equipment, a lot of monitoring capabilities with power quality analyzers, energy meters, etc. So electrical also it becomes pretty interesting. The UPS, when it comes in, there is power electronics field that comes in. Then when we go to safety security, what kind of cameras, where should they be placed, what kind of access control, do we really need man traps, do we really need biometric access control? Lot of technology that starts getting pulled in. We talk about fire detection, we talk about what kind of detection, because by law there is a basic detection which is expected. But because this is a very critical space and there are some equipments like the batteries which are highly flammable, so data centers also deploy something called as uh, a very early smoke detection and alarm kind of systems. And so unique technology comes in here as well, even in something as simple as a fire detection. Last, when it comes to large or extra large data centers, even the building design, what is the clearance around the building, what kind of parking spaces are created for it, what kind of power has been sanctioned for it. All these become a very important design parameter, and with people from diverse experiences, like even the site selection for large extra large data centers, they need to create which is a seismically stable location where the outdoor pollution levels are low, because in some places we find sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxides, they are also corrosive in nature, so the equipment starts failing more or need more maintenance. So site selection, something as simple as that, also requires a particular expertise when we are looking at setting up a data center. Now what is the complexity, if you ask me, right? The complexity is not that you need a mechanical engineer to design air condition. It is very simple to do. The complexity is there are trade-offs, and all these people I talked about together need to agree on one design, and that makes it complex.
So, Amod, that looks not only complex but highly technical, straddling various fields of engineering. I could hear you talk about building structures. I could hear you talk about electricals. I could hear you speak about safety. I could hear you speak about environment. Um, natural calamities. So a lot of things need to come together, and that's quite interesting to note. One of the things which our learners would like to understand is what are the customers that you cater to, what segments, because you mentioned about small data centers, medium data centers, large data centers. So who are these customers, what are the various segments that you cater to, and how unique and different are their needs and expectations from you?
So if we try to segment this market based on the customer profile, uh, typically, firstly, we can segment it in two ways. First is somebody who needs a data center for their business, and the second is for somebody whose business is data center. So typically, the large and extra large capacities are deployed or invested by companies whose business is data center. In this segment, there are typically two types of players. One is the traditional, what we call as the co-location business, and the second is what we call as the cloud business. What is the difference between the two? A co-location business is where one organization sets up a large infrastructure for data center and practically it rents out space for customers to bring in their IT equipment and host it there. But completely different is, instead of infrastructure as a service, everything as a service, XaaS, right? That is the new
Yeah.
buzzword. So when we are talking today, we are talking about players like Azure, we are talking about players like IBM Cloud, HP Cloud, Oracle Cloud, Salesforce.com, wherein IT is the output direct, which the customer is being provided. He doesn't even care what kind of infra, where is the infra, what you want a CRM. Salesforce says, okay, here is the CRM. This is your username, password, this is your monthly bill, right? So now in this case, what happens? The infra is anyway owned by them, but now even the network and the IT is also owned by them. The second category which we had created was somebody who needs a data center for their business. Now here there are typically two types. One is what we call as an enterprise data center. So typically these are spaces where that organization's ERP will be hosted and run. Sometimes there are some statutory requirements like for banks that you have to have the data of your customers in your premise and you can't simply put it outsourced and things like that. So many of the banks, whichever be the size, they need to have their own data center. That becomes their enterprise data center. Sometimes you also need IT for specific application which has nothing to do with ERP systems or business, how it is run. Supercomputing, for example. You want to create a simulation for failure testing of engines or designing cryogenics or gene sequencing. You need a lot of IT, but it is not really like a data center. So it can be in a room somewhere. We call it supercomputer. Nowadays, computing is becoming so entrenched with IoT and with Industry 4.0 that maybe you will need some kind of a computing right next to the CNC machine to control it. Or there are some robotics which require a compute right next to it. These are also some examples of what we call as micro data centers. So these are the different types of customers. And as a result, the way it is purchased also becomes different. Now you'll notice the moment I talk about data center for business need, these capital expenditures will be a smaller part of the business. As a result, what will happen? The customer is not going to have a dedicated in-house team for these kind of purchases because it is not a regular purchase for them. Once in 10 years, they may buy a data center equipment. So typically, the customers don't have very knowledgeable people on the infrastructure. They would assign somebody as a consultant and system integration partners, and they would create these infrastructures. Also, because it is a small capex, usually it is downloaded to either the facility team or to the IT team that, okay, you get it done. It's like a small project. But when we go to the second category, which I talked about first, which is data center as a business, this, they being their business, they invest in all kinds of engineering capabilities in-house first. So we talked about all those engineering fields required. They practically have each of them, if not more, in-house, right? Then you will say that, okay, then can they simply build on their own? No, they still need to have checks and balances. So although they have in-house capabilities, they also hire professional consultants for specific fields. They also hire professional project managements because these projects are long-term projects, complex projects. So they need project management expertise. They also have in-house, but they also bring in an outside agency. This is how a maker-checker arrangement always remains in place. Somebody checking somebody what somebody else is doing, right? That is how they make sure that errors don't creep in or ethical issues don't prop up. Compared to that are all the OEMs that also come in here, because here what happens typically, a single OEM providing the solution is not very common, although not impossible. But the way the buying behavior is that they would not want to put full risk into one OEM. So they try to de-risk there as well. So there are a couple of OEMs which are all involved in every project. Whereas in that small data center which I expressed, it was so small, customer says, why should I talk to 10 different OEMs? If one SI or one OEM is saying, I will do the entire job for you, they prefer that way and they just get it executed by trusting that person. So this is the way in which the complexity of how the purchase happens for a project is also very different between the two segments, for whom data center is a business and for whom data center is just a need of their business.
Thank you, Amod. That was quite insightful. We first spoke about complexity, then we spoke about technology. Now we have brought in another element of diversity to that entire subject. Interesting to know the multiple and different types of customer segments that you have, and also how their requirements change, whether it's a co-location, whether it is a cloud-based service which is being provided, yeah, or the other players who are involved could be consultants, could be system integrators, and why the requirement is necessary for even small organization as well as large organizations, both having internal expertise or not having internal expertise. So this brings in a lot of variety to your entire business. What we would like to know next is that how do you then manage all these customers? I mean, how do your key account managers or how do your strategic account managers engage with these customers? What kind of key account management programs that you have, or what kind of organizational ecosystem that you create to go and address these customers?
So rightly put, depending upon the profile of the customers, we always need to select the right go-to-market structure. How do we structure our sales organization or the delivery organization, etc., becomes very critical. Now, if you look at the second category first, which is somebody who needs data center for their business, it may be a small enterprise data center, it may be micro data centers. If you look at these kind of purchases, you can segment them into two. One is repeat purchase and one is a one-time purchase. So if you look at it, typically most of the enterprise data center requirements are not repeat purchases. What I mean that once they invest, typically the 5 to 10 years kind of lifetime is what they have in mind and they invest once, which means they will buy a data center again when after 10 years. Now, in this kind of an approach, typically a hunter approach is always preferred because you don't need to invest a person into that account for 10 years only to get one purchase order at the end of 10 years. So somebody who is like a hunter who keeps looking into the market, there's an opportunity, some enterprise wants some make a data center, and he quickly attacks that, creates the support structure and tries to win. But even in the enterprise segment, some businesses, especially when we talk about IT services kind of organizations, because of their tremendous growth. Here, even the small data centers, which could be for an IT service provider, something like a project or a development project, small IT setups need to get created. And this is repeat purchases. So here, somebody would still want to go with a key account approach because that particular account is going to invest in this kind of an infrastructure very frequently. Could be a couple of times every year, kind of a frequency. Still, it makes sense to have a key account management approach because the organization to organization mapping, if it is strong, a large chunk of their business can keep flowing to your organization. When we look at the other segment, which is data center as a business, definitely it requires a key account management approach. You can't even think doing without it because it is tremendous frequent purchases that keep happening. Not only that, one purchase order execution can take up to 2 years. It becomes very critical, not only how you design the team, but what kind of accounts you give to that salesperson also starts becoming critical. Let me give you an example. If it is a hunter organization, what you will do, you will typically give them territories. Sometimes you will give them vertical segments also. If it is your solution is specific to certain verticals, it can also be a vertical segmentation or an application segmentation. And what will the salesperson do? He knows that thousands of purchase orders are going to come in the segment. So every week, can he capture 20, 30 of them? Yes, why not? So he can have a weekly target because it is like smaller values, multiple POs. And so there is a run rate mechanism which is possible to be tracked at a daily or a weekly mechanism. But when we talk about large projects, it will be one project coming every 6 months, for example. Now, how can you give a target which is a weekly target or a monthly target to that salesperson? But can a company take a risk that, okay, let us give an annual target only? Okay, that one person I invest, I pay him full salary, whatever travel expenses is reimbursing, that also I pay him. And at the end of the year, I will know whether I'm getting something or not. This also is highly risky. So what customers typically I have seen doing is organizations doing is that they will give a mix account of bag of accounts to every salesperson, which means what? Some who are already doing business. So these are typically called as maintenance accounts. So already relationship exists. So some of the orders will keep trickling in at least at a monthly basis. Second is develop accounts where today they are not big business for you, but you know that because that industry is growing, because you know the investment plans of that account, in the near future it is going to start giving a lot of business. So these are the second accounts. And the third accounts, you know, which are your competition accounts, but they are high potential. So you would want to win some of them over. So from that perspective, we see that these are the complexities involved in how to set a target for a key account from a revenue perspective. Uh, also, just to add here, when we say key account management, right, is it only sales? Also becomes a question to ask. When it is a hunter sales organization, what is the objective? Sales only. What do you need? Can I give you in a more competitive way as compared to my competition and I get the revenue? Right? That is the only motive for every action. But when we look at a key account management approach, revenue is one of the outcomes. Because in order to get that revenue, you need to manage stakeholders. You need to build relationships within the two organizations. These relationships also may not be at only one person level. It could be an organization to organization mapping. There are trade-offs which need to be done between various negotiations that are happening, technical, commercial, and so on, right? And so there are many other key performance indicators for a key account manager. Suddenly you will find for a key account manager, it is not just revenue to be reported. It could be relationship status reporting. It could be getting a framework agreement signed that let us not negotiate on commercial terms every time. This is a framework agreement. Let's sign it once. So now what happens? Your credit period, your delivery period, your uptime guarantees are negotiated once and for all. Then what happens? It becomes easy. You are only negotiating for a commercials of a particular project.
We covered various aspects of your business, starting from the choice of accounts to how your portfolio of account manager is, whether it's a hunting strategy or whether you would want to look at an account management program. You also dwelled on how engagement happens with these people, various negotiation scenarios, and finally how this can evolve in some cases into strategic partnership. Where, however, looking at all of these things, I'm sure that your business has got some very unique and some very very challenging environment. Could you throw some light on what kind of challenges do you face? Because
Sure. So there are multiple challenges which keep cropping up when we are trying to run a key account management kind of an approach. The first is when you are investing a resource as a key account manager, it is an investment. And this investment itself comes with a risk. What is that risk? If we are completely dependent only on that key account manager, then the easiest way our competition can take away the account from us is by hiring away that key account manager. So we are practically giving him the key to our safe, right? That key account manager that, okay, my business is dependent on you. This becomes the first risk. The second risk is at the customer end. There are always people movement that keeps happening within the industry. So whether it is a good relationship or whether it is a bad relationship, both gets carried over with that resource from the customer who moves within that industry. Usually we find that it is pretty common for people to keep moving around in an industry. One of the keys is a multi-level engagement. So none of the companies that I have worked with ever depend on one key account manager for that particular account. So what happens is there is a multiple linkages at different levels. And when it is a really a big account, even at a CEO level, there is an attempt made to have a connect. So what happens is now the key account manager may be the primary contact for somebody in the organization who may be a procurement head. But then there is a internal technical team head and there is a design team head on the OEM side also. They will also start developing a connect with each other. Similarly, there will be a finance team on both sides. They will also form a relationship because frequently they are discussing credit terms, payment received, reconciling accounts. Frequent meetings start happening. And then if the relationship is moving forward towards a possible strategic partnership, then the CEOs also want to keep in touch so that they align each other with each other's strategy. The second thing which keeps happening and which is very challenging for a key account manager, while all these multi-level connects are happening, a key account manager cannot have a perspective that, okay, I know my procurement counterpart and I know everything what he is doing. But I don't know what the technical team is doing. I don't know what their CEO is planning. I don't know what their finance team is talking. It doesn't work out because at the end of the day, he is like the captain of the team. It's a team sport. So the captain of the team needs to know what other members are doing first. And sometimes the captain of the team instructs the other team members what they need to do also, right? And this is where in some organizations where key account management was very evolved, I have seen briefing decks going to the CEO. Okay. Now, typically, where it is not so evolved, what is the kind of briefing deck? The briefing deck CEO says, who am I meeting? Tell me something about him so that I can start a conversation with him. So, sir, this is an organization with so much turnover, so many employees, so many branches, they buy so much from us. This is the past issue that they had. This kind of a report is sent. This is in a low evolution key account management organization. Okay, that the CEO is going to meet. So tell him all, let him be prepared. In an evolved organization of key account management, I have seen a different kind of briefing report. This one report which I talked about anyway goes, but then goes the second report, what is expected from the CEO in that meeting? Who is telling? The key account manager is telling that this is a very strategic meeting. They have had a meeting with our competitor. That competitor has discussed XYZ things with the CEO. So firstly, you should know what is our status with the customer. Second, you should know what competition is trying to do in that customer segment. Third, you should know that this is the agenda that we want to drive. The key account manager is actually telling the CEO what he should do. This starts happening when the key account management becomes evolved and when the key account manager understands his role in the true essence, that he is like a orchestrator of an orchestra, right? Although he may not be the best player to play the different instruments, but if he doesn't do his job properly, the symphony doesn't come out properly. Now, to make things worse, there are ecosystem outside the two organizations also, which also become a very critical part. And so there also the key account manager has to keep a watch on. For example, we talked about consultants, we talked about system integrators. Sometimes even competing OEMs become part of the ecosystem, right? This may be something which you may find a little strange, okay? But there are many cases in large complex projects where two competitors have to work together to deliver a system. And all these come together and each meeting is a trade-off, right? For example, your procurement team will be pressurizing you that why you are not delivering on time. Okay. At the same time, in another meeting, you hear the project manager is telling that, by the way, our site will not be ready for another 6 months. So don't deliver anything. Now the consultant says, no, but I want to have the testing on this time only because I cannot wait any longer. I have some other business plan. So the key account manager has to create a trade-off. Consultants want testing of the equipment in the factory, which means the product should be ready manufactured. But customer is saying, don't deliver, my site is not ready, which means you have converted raw material into finished good, but you can't revenue it. Now, if you try to force the customer, no, you take the delivery. Okay. Customer will say, okay, I need ask you are giving, so increase my credit period. So the finance team will come in. No, why are you giving more credit? Correct. So every decision starts becoming a huge trade-off.
Thank you, Amod, once again. And quite interesting to note that at one end you're talking about de-risking your business because there could be change in people both at your organization and at the customer organization. So build relationship levels across the organization right up to the leadership level. One of the interesting things which and which is very different from what I've heard in the past is the ability of the key account manager to drive the agenda and using your leadership as a point of influence to go and influence the leadership of your customer. I have one more last question to you before we try to sum up. Is that what is the future? Where does data center business go from? What's your take?
India is poised to be a major player in the data center industry. Some of the key pointers which indicate to this and support this is for the first time in the budget of last year, not this year, last year's budget, the India finance minister is talking about identifying data center as a segment and the government actually keeping aside a budget to support the development of that particular segment of an industry shows us what is the importance that the government of India sees for data centers in India. Some recent announcement which we keep seeing in social media and news about data center parks being opened in some states like UP, in Kerala, in Tamil Nadu, in Hyderabad, in Bangalore, and so on and so forth, is another proof point that it is a focus segment being looked at. The third thing is, what is the growth driver? Because one is that, yes, the people are buying more, so it seems promising. But is there a basic driver which is the cause of this kind of a growth in the future? So there is that also. If you look at anything today, can it do without IT? Right? The answer is no. The most basic business, somebody opens a flower shop. In 2 days, you will find there will be a www dot something that you can order online, which will come up even in that flower shop, right? So practically you can't run a business today without IT. Now, when you want to use IT, you will obviously need IT services. The second thing you will need is IT expertise because many of the companies will need people to work on those data centers. The third is you will need connectivity. Now, India is already known to be a major player when it comes to telecom infrastructure in our country. It is really well, right? When we compare with many other countries outside, it is also the most affordable in India. Mobile telephony as well as data as well as optical fiber to the home kind of technologies. Now this setup is ready. India has always been known as the IT subject matter expert of the world, right? We always used to take pride in all Indian engineers, Indian origin engineers doing great things in the IT world. So we have a very good structure of education where technically qualified people in IT are coming out at a very rapid pace. What is left then to be successful in data center? You have connectivity, you have the resources. You need land, you need power. And in the last decade, the way the development of the infrastructure has happened, land is also very easily available. And power infrastructure has taken such a leap that it is very easily possible to get any kind of capacity of power from the government in the form of utility connections. So, and also the power is very competitive when you look at it from the global rate of power. Because in the data center, what is the biggest expense? Electricity bill is the biggest expense. And so all the factors which are required for a successful data center industry are all favorable in India. And as a result, we are seeing a huge amount of development happening. There are some reports which I read which indicate that in the last 20 years, the amount of investment that happened in data centers, in the next 5 years, it is going to be replicated. Right? So 4 times the rate at which developments or investments are going to happen. And again, when we look at many of the announcements that we keep seeing in our social media, they are all indicators of this. To make it another favorable driver are the new legislations which the government is bringing in. The more and more we see that social media or IT delivered through a cloud mechanism, the more it starts intruding upon the sovereignty of a country, and the country starts feeling the need to regulate it, right? And that is where we start seeing that the regulations will anyway start coming in with respect to data privacy, with respect to access to data by government for its citizens, etc., pushing various organizations who today may be providing services from outside the border, but because of such regulatory frameworks, they will be forced to start delivering from within the borders, right? And so we see a lot of large players investing, multinationals in India from a data center infrastructure perspective, so that their delivery point of their solutions starts becoming within Indian borders, is also becoming pretty apparent as we go forward. So because of this, we find that the data center industry is especially very promising because of these various drivers which are coming in. If we look at the smaller segment of data centers also, the future is equally bright. More and more we are seeing deployments of anybody today thinking of setting up a manufacturing unit is going to see how he can make it industry 4.0, right? And so the moment that comes in, a lot of deployment of IoT on its own is of no use unless there is a data center backing it up with analytics and insights which are getting created and deployed. So whether it is robotics getting deployed, whether it is IoT getting deployed, again, it has to be supported by some data center infrastructure at the back end. And so even if you look at industrial development, it is going to feed data centers.
So Amod, I can see why you're so optimistic about this industry and why you anticipate exponential growth in the future. Yeah, be it because of the demand of the customer who is adopting technology more and more, either because of the need that he sees and perceives, or or could be forced by external environments such as pandemics, which are making people go more and more online. Uh, the other fact is the capability of India, both in terms of the human resources and the capabilities of engineers and peoples that we have, or in terms of infrastructure such as the capability of generating and delivering power, the right amount of power, or making land available, to government legislations and the government support which is coming to the industry, and in fact the data center being recognized as an industry in the first place. So looks like you're on a good ship, looks like you're set sail to achieve more milestones. Before we part, we would also want you to tell our learners or leave a message for our learners that if they would want to make careers into an industry like data centers, a small message for them as to how do they go about doing it.
So not just data centers, but if you want to make a career in key account management, one of the things that we will have to transform ourselves in is one needs to realize that there are multiple stakeholders that you need to manage. And so you should be able to have a value adding conversation with each of those personas in the organization. I think that is the key driver. So for a key account manager, you always need to develop an attitude of keeping yourself abreast of the latest developments in the industry. Because the moment you talk to any senior resource on the business side of your customer, he will be interested to talk about that with you, right? That what is somebody else doing? Is there a new service somebody is launching? Is there a new technology which is really driving? You need to be aware of it. When you're talking to consultants, etc., obviously you will have your technical resources aligned with them on a technical level, but you should know some basics at least of the technology that you are interfacing with the consultant for. And so you can have a conversation which can lead to a detailed discussion with your technical team. See, nobody will expect the key account manager to be an expert at everything. But in true sense, a key account manager needs to be the jack of all trades, right? So little bit of technology, you should be aware. You don't need to be an expert. Little bit of industry trends, you need to be aware. Little bit of commercial terms and conditions, legal aspects of a contract, you need to be aware. Because all these are the trade-offs that you need to carry out, right? For the legal thing, you will have a lawyer at your end. For the commercial, there will be a negotiation person at your end. For the technical, there will be an engineering team to support you. But you can't be clueless. And so trying to develop an attitude where you are keeping yourself abreast of these kind of things and maturing yourself with the exposure to these kind of situations is going to be very critical for you to develop yourself into key account management. It's a very interesting field to be in. More and more, we are seeing many industries, not just data center, transforming into strategic partnerships, because we are seeing consolidation happening throughout the industries, in all industries, if you look at it, right? So getting domain expertise and then adding to it the flavor of a key account management skill set is going to be very, very critical for being relevant in the industry going forward, right? So I think if you have decided to be in a B2B business as compared to a B2C business, right, it is paramount that you enable yourself with key account management skills and some kind of domain expertise, because everybody is looking at specialized resources today. Key account management also is going to become a pretty norm, right, going forward. They will say that, oh, I know you are a key account manager, but are you also a domain expert? That is the direction in which the customers' expectations are going. If you look at a B2C kind of a businesses, you may say traditionally, why do I need to do key account management in a B2C? But the way the data of customers is now flowing in because of the various mobile platforms, how the consumers are interacting with the OEMs, many of these principles of key account management become very relevant in B2C environment also.
Very, very well put, Amol. I must say that the knowledge of key account management or the practice of key account management coupled with the domain expertise is what is going to take our learners uh, not only in the data center business and not only into the B2B business, but that insight that I derive is that it is relevant for even B2C businesses where there is a lot of personalization and there is a lot of input which is available for salespeople to interact with their customers. I think with that, we really thank you for this conversation. We have gained a lot, and I hope our learners are able to not only gain but also adapt some of these things into their own businesses that they are, managing today, or probably structure how they would want to look at their careers in future. Thank you, Amod, once again for coming to Learning Cafe at Skill Tiger, and we wish you luck for your endeavors in future. You seem to be set on a high velocity path, so good luck to you again.
Thank you, Rahul, and to all our learners, happy learning.
Thank you.